Welcome to Weird Games and Weirder People, a podcast about role-playing games and the weird, wonderful people behind them.
Hello, wonderful weirdos. This is Diogo Nogueira, and today's guest is a very special guest. He's a friend of mine now. I'm talking about Luke Stratton, or Limithron, which is his Transformer name, I guess. I don't know. He's the creator of the coolest of Borgs, the Pirate Borg. He was with me on Game on Expo and Gary Cohn. We got to talk a bunch, we bonded. But before we get into that, I would like to remind you to subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen to the podcast. Leave us a review, tell us what you think about the show, share it with friends, and support the show. Look at the show notes to see how you can pay us a coffee or buy one of my games, or give me money anyway to keep this thing afloat. So getting back to Luke Stratton, we talked about how we hang out on Game on Expo, on Gary Cohn, how we became friends. We talk about pirates, of course. We talk about Pirate Borg. We talk about Borg, its community, its strength, how good the thing is, all the influences that Luke has on his work, on game design, on pirates, future release, his plans for the line of Pirate Borg, if he wants to explore other themes, how the process is for creating for him, how he tries to always keep passionate about pirates and always keeping pirates in his mind and producing more and more great things for Pirate Borg. We talk about a lot of self-reflection, talk about how it's very hard to keep doing this, and about how he's very disciplined, how his creative process makes him work, and he gets into creative flow very every day. It was a very fascinating chat. I hope you like it as much as I did and learned a lot through Luke. So I hope you do too. So let's get weird with Luke Stratton. Hey Luke, welcome to Weird Games and Weirder People. It's so good to see you again after, basically seeing you for 2 weeks and then hanging out. It was really the first time we hang out. It was so good. So how have you been, my friend?
Oh man, I'm so good, Diego. Thank you for having me. I feel honored to be on this like celebrity cast of YouTube OSR, or not YouTube, but OSR creators you keep having on this show. I don't know if I deserve it.
Well, you just saw you are the top 10 sellers on 2024, right?
Apparently, I don't believe it, but yeah, some ICV2 reported that Pirate Borg was like one of the top 10 selling games last year. I still don't. I think they might must have carried a zero the wrong way or something.
That's amazing, and probably that helps people get to know more and maybe sell more. So congratulations for that, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, we were both on Game on Expo on Arizona. Small conventions, we had some panels, we hang out to talk about game design, and then we were straight to Gary Cohn, which is like a really cozy, very OSR and like old school kind of gamers just hanging out, and how
cozy.
How was the conventions for you, my friend?
Game on Expo was very interesting. It was a very video game forward convention, but I thought for me the highlight was getting to talk with you so much. We got to talk in the official like panel format for 4 hours because there were 4 panels, but then just hanging out all week because normally at those conventions there's like so many people from so many different companies, and you've got gaming and meetings, and at that I had one Pirate Borg game. It's all, but it was like there wasn't a huge RPG. They're trying to develop the RPG community, but as far as creators,
we are all the RPG stuff.
Yeah, it was you and me, and
the only stand selling RPG.
Yeah,
stuff.
the only publisher was Free League Publishing, and then we had Andrew Gaska from Alien, and then on Sunday John Wick was there, so that was cool. But Gary Con was like the opposite. It was like everywhere we go, every game I was in, I was like, oh, that's this YouTuber, and that's this guy who published some adventure ever. Yeah, it was very cool.
Someone you knew, and the other convention was we didn't know anybody, and it was almost like we only had each other, kind of thing,
in a way, yeah, sure.
Yeah,
I mean, it's also cool to like meet people who like brand new people,
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
But the thing is, Gary Con is like, it's not that big, but like, so the number of like creator to, I guess regular attendee,
Yeah.
the ratio is
yeah.
really high. Like at Gen Con, there's like, I don't know, 50,000 people or something.
Yeah.
But here, I don't know, it was fun.
And it's a style of gaming too, and people, the indie community, the Eurostar community is very promiscuous in this way. Like you very quickly can go from just a player to create something, make a zine, and maybe more traditional games like in Gen Con that isn't so indie focused on OSR focused. This barrier is not as thin, right?
That's very true. Yeah. And also compared to other industries, like if you look at video games, games take even indie games take more people to put out than a role-playing game. So it's really cool to be like, oh yeah, here I'm hanging next to Luke Gygax, the son of the creator of D&D, and then there's Kelsey Dion, like just running like a open public game of Shadow Dark for anybody who can sit down. It's cool.
Yeah. And did you had any time to maybe explore the video game part of Game on Expo? I did play some retro arcade games like pinballs. There was a wrestling ring there.
There was a band on one day. The only time I really got to explore was like the video game part was the before the hall opened on Friday. And I went and played. Yeah, I played a bunch of. I think I played the Star Wars pinball game. The Ninja Turtles pinball game. I got to play a bunch. And I played a bunch of the like shooter. Of course, I'm wearing an alien hat. The shooter alien arcade game was fun. But I would have liked to have gone to some panels or played some demos or something. But I was there to do my RPG thing. So yeah.
Cool. And we've been talking here, and of course you are one of the top 10 sellers this year, and people know you. But maybe a wonderful weirdo who is listening to us don't know who Luke Stratton is. So, and I also love to hear for the people who come here in their own words. So, can you say who you are, who Luke Stratton is, what is that you do, and if you can share just a small weird detail about yourself, maybe a habit, maybe the way you drink coffee or any weird thing about this?
Sure, yeah. My name's Luke Stratton. I am the creator of Pirate Borg. I'm also the creator of Limithron's Guide to Naval Combat. I run a Patreon called Limithron. It's also the name of my company. I make a lot of pirate-themed battle maps and assets, and we just released like a coral reef asset pack where you can drag and drop coral reef assets onto a map. I also host my own podcast called Ship of the Dead. It's not nearly as prolific as this wonderful podcast, but we're getting there.
But much more produced is better produced. And here we just record and release it.
Well, that has a time and money cost. We pay an editor, and I think we're on episode 15. What are you on? Like 100 now or something?
I don't know, 50 something. Yeah.
What else? A weird thing about me. I drink my coffee black. I used to get really hangry. And I've gotten a lot better than that because I've started intermittent fasting. Like the trend is, so for the past 2 years, I've been much better about getting mad when I'm hungry. That's my weird thing, I guess.
Wow. Yeah. Did you happen to remember any, not necessarily some bad moment, but any funny moments or that you were hangry and caused you trouble in any way?
Oh, I think I have a kind of a funny aside story. So I have another career. I am full-time RPG, but I also have another job doing concert lighting. And so that's really where this would crop up. I would be at gigs and have not eaten all day and be like, I can really hyper focus really well, but I'm not very good at multitasking, especially when I'm quote hangry. So I would have like people asking questions and I always be short and like snipping at them. And my wife came to tour once.
So like this too.
Yeah.
It's hard.
It is hard.
Hyper focus is great, but I mean, changing gears.
But hyper focusing and having to talk and tell other people what to do, I'm not that great at, So this one time my wife came early on in our relationship, and she came to visit tour, and she's used to me being very nice and charismatic, and And she saw me being like a bossy grump to my like staff, you know, and she's like, Luke's kind of a jerk. And I was like, oh, I mean, I'm just trying to get my, you know, I'm more of a get the job done kind of guy than get it done where, you know, like I try to be cool to everybody, but you know, sometimes I forget that people are people, you know, so yeah.
I'm at my work, I had like a boss on a sector, like was a subsector of a greater sector in the job, and I always went to talk to my boss when there was no trouble, right? I wouldn't go talk to my boss if everything was alright. So I would just walk through the whole floor, didn't talk to anybody, just like focus on I have to solve this. I went there, talked to him, and went out to do the thing. And after a while he came to me, oh Diogo, people are complaining because, you know, you come here and you walk everywhere and you don't talk to anybody, you don't say hi, you don't ask how people are, you know, and, you know, and then I, you know, start doing this now. And, you know, I now realize, you know, things about being autistic and don't realize social protocols and kind of stuff, you know.
Sure.
And people use it to think I look like mad. Oh, you're mad at me. No, that's just my face. I don't know. Yeah, but yeah, when you're focused on like a problem, it's very hard to know. Oh, hi, hi everybody.
Yeah.
I have this big problem here. I have to solve, but yeah, I'll chit chat with you for a while because
and
that's
some
what
people
I'm
are
supposed to do. Yeah.
Yeah, people are wired different, though. A great example is that my brother works for Limithron. He's our quartermaster. He deals with all of our convention schedules and a lot of our logistics. And like when he first started working for me, he's also my younger brother. So we had a lot of like problems where he was like seeking my approval for things and needing to know what to do. And then thinking I was mad at him when I wasn't talking to him. And I'm just trying to make the next book. I'm not thinking about his emotions at all in my normal work day. So now I just got back yesterday from a trip to see him. He's like, actually, this has actually helped our relationship because I realized that you're not just always mad at me and thinking about me. You're just thinking about your own thing. And I'm like, yep, I'm just wired that. People are wired different. So, you know.
Yeah. But also, to be honest, I think we think a lot of times we think people are thinking about us or are judging us. But mostly people are just focused on their own shit, right? Their own. We all have our own problems in our heads, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look, the podcast is called Weird Games and Weirder People, and I always ask the guests here to talk a little bit about their work. And, you know, during Pirate Borg, which is this super weird fantasy pirate adventure with this kind of drug, psychedelic thing with sorcery. So it's very in line with the show. But I'd like to ask you, what is weird for you? How do you define weird, and how do you seek that in your work and also outside of your work, outside of RPGs in your life, and maybe even your work in lightning, in concert lightning?
Oh man, that's a good question. Well, I think weird for me, I mean, it kind of has two meanings. For one, like on the positive side, weird has always been my way of life. Like I remember changing schools in middle school, and you know, my parents being like, well, you know, talking to the new principal or new teachers and being like, you know, Luke's, I don't know if they said the word weird, but they were like, Luke's kind of on the weird side, you know, and that he's like almost, you know, always wearing skater t-shirts and band t-shirts and had long greasy hair, you know, and but like it's always been part of my identity. I've never felt part of the norm, even in the RPG community. After a few years of working on RPGs, I remember thinking, oh, you know, like I'm not part of the like 5e. I mean, I make 5e content, and I don't mean this as a slant to the rule system at all, but just like I'm not part of the like warm, fuzzy, like very popular style of D&D that gets played or portrayed on YouTube or even on Critical Role. I love those things, but I'm always been like, you know what? Now I'm going to make this weird like hack of Morkborg. And then even in that, I'm like, no, we're going to make like a pirate version of this weird hack of Morkborg. It's like, I'm always looking for like my weird, dark little niche that I can like, you know, sit and feel comfortable in and look around and see like other people who are similar to me. I really like surrounding myself with other people who enjoy the same level of fringe. And I think this is why games like Dungeon Crawl Classics have really appealed to me, and Morkborg. I mean, and even D&D as a whole, just the fact that like, other kids, in high school were into sports or whatever. And I was still at the time, like looking for the weird fringe thing, So yeah, but then also I think weird has like a negative a connotation sometimes, which I don't subscribe to. I think that weird, when people are like, "Oh, that's weird," I don't like that. Like, well, I mean, like, come on,
Yeah. We have this saying that we're trying to recover the weird from this negative connotation and saying like the weird is the new wonderful kind of way.
Yes, yes,
and
I like that a lot.
Yeah, because weird. The problem is, for a long while we had all to prescribe to this standard, to this mode of how you're supposed to dress, how you're supposed to act, how you're supposed to have relationships, and now we are ever more free of these things, and we can be more of ourselves. We're more accepting of each other, more diverse. That's like being diversity is accepting to be weird. I think everybody's a little bit weird, but some people can't accept the weird in themselves, and because of that, they can't accept the weird in the others. Because if they can't accept themselves, it's very hard to, if I can't be who I always, I have to be this, you can't be that, or something like this. And
yeah.
And weird is all about being authentic, right? About being yourself and celebrating
being yourself,
that.
yes.
Yeah,
and I actually experienced this when I was working on Pirate Borg, because when I first started on Pirate Borg, it's a hack of Morkborg, and I had played Morkborg and really enjoyed the game, but also the aesthetics. And so at first I was trying to make Pirate Borg match, I was trying to make it bright yellow and neon colors and very like Johan inspired art. And I did not feel genuine to myself enough. And I had to kind of like reapproach it and, I guess make it, in some ways I made it less weird, but in other ways I made it more weird. And that it was like, nobody's done this before, and I'm going to make this game so I feel authentic, So I really like what you're saying there about authenticity is being weird,
And makes the work better, right? Because everybody's doing like Johan. Everybody's trying to do like Johan, but you did you, and that's.
Yes.
And Morkborg has its own aesthetic, has its own feel. It feels like Morkborg because it's dark as well, but it's its own thing, and that's great because you followed what you wanted, what you felt was authentic, and not what others would maybe expect hearing. Oh, it's a board game, so it has to be exactly like Morkborg.
I think a good example, and by no way am I putting myself on the pedestal that is Meshuggah, but for those of you who are into metal bands, I think Meshuggah is a really great example because they started at, back in, I think the 80s or 90s, and they sounded a lot like the, metal bands of Megadeth and Metallica at the time. Like their first record sounds a lot more like that. And they kind of like had to like, we're going to go to our own direction. And I'd like to think that maybe I'm on the same path that, eventually it'll be like, it's its own thing. In a lot of ways, Pirate Borg is its own thing. Obviously it's called Pirate Borg and it uses the core rule system. But I'd like to think that over time it's grown to be more and more of its own thing, rather than its own weird thing, rather than it just being a reskin.
Yeah, I think I read it was David Letterman that said we try to be our idols, and our shortcomings is what makes us special or us different, and if we focus on that, how we are different than our ideals is. That's what will make our work unique, and that's how he tried to be Carson and ended up being David Letterman. Like this.
You hear the same thing with visual art a lot. People will talk about like the thing that you like, the way that you aren't good enough to get the thing out of your head is actually what makes you different. Your mistakes are what make you different. And that's really hard for a young artist, and even for myself when I'm drawing, I'm like, oh, this just looks like crap. But then when you like take a step back, I think Mike Mignola is a great example. Like he is so deep into his style that at first when you look at it, you'd be like, oh, this is like a lot simpler than say Todd McFarlane, you know? But the reality is that like his style is so replicated and copied now. And it's like, I don't know if it came from his shortcomings or if he pushed it to that, but I think him being himself and being different and weird is what makes it so coveted now. You know?
And
I think
explore that and turn that into something else. It's not easy to make art like Mike Mignola doing good art. You can try to make it and do like more flat colors. And it kind of looks like, but do really good stuff like he does. It's hard.
Dude, he is a master of understanding. You know, for those not familiar with Mike Mignola, he's the creator of Hellboy, and he's very good at like, you can almost take a figure and draw a line, and on the left is white, on the right is black, because these very black inky shadows. It's just like actually really hard to replicate correctly. You know,
it's a really great domain of shape, of color, of shadows, of light.
Yeah. It's kind of like Picasso.
Really
like Picasso, at first you're like, that looks easy to do. Well, you try to paint a Picasso paintings, you know.
Oh yeah, and know how he knew do that. He knew how to do classic stuff too. If you see the early paintings of Picasso, he did all the classic stuff, you know. And
same with Mike Mignola. He was hired by DC. He did a bunch of like early, I think, Batman and stuff before he really found his own vibe, you know.
Yeah. Do you think there is something like this for tabletop role-playing game designers? Some bases you should cover and then explore the art or anything like this, or?
Oh, I mean, I think everybody's path. I'm very hesitant to say that anybody should do anything because.
Of course,
yeah. But I would say that there's definitely a benefit to knowing. I mean, like a great example, whether you like him personally or not. Orson Scott Card, the writer of Ender's Game, he has a book called Writing Science Fiction and Fantasy, or he at least contributed to this book. And one of the things he talks about is like, don't think that you can roll up into the science fiction, well, he calls it speculative fiction. Don't think that you can arrive in the speculative fiction genre and expect to write something new without having read what exists. And I think that that's really good advice, especially in the RPG community. Yeah. Like if you're going to roll up, I see people do this in the Mork Borg community, and I won't call any projects out, but some people will arrive and be like, "Hey, I found out about Mork Borg, like, and I started writing this new hack of whatever insert the genre," and I'll be like, "What? You realize that somebody has already done that like 3 times, you know?" And that always catches me off guard because I'm the opposite. Like I would never go down a creation path without having studied both the marketplace from a commercial perspective, but more importantly, like what's out there creatively. Like you don't want to be reinventing the wheel, or if you are going to be reinventing the wheel, you want to know what else has been done. Like what can you do different than that? What can you do better? You know, and in the pirate RPG space, I've seen that a lot. Or for example, John Wick's game, 7th Sea, great game. You know, at the time it was the highest funded Kickstarter of all time. But I was like, oh, this isn't like, I understand what this game is, and I'm going to do something different because so I would recommend that more than anything is to, educate yourself, read what's out there, learn what makes an adventure tick and what you like in an adventure if you're going to be writing adventures, that kind of thing.
That's true. But I will also add that, don't be discouraged if there's already a prehistoric fantasy RPG out there, because see how can you make that yours? How can you make that prehistoric fantasy yours and different from them? Because I believe we are almost incapable of making exact works of art. You can try copying, of course. You're trying to make a replica, but if you're just trying to make something with your own experiences, the stuff that you like, your own research, even if you make a dark fantasy pirate game that I do want to make. I want to make a sea and sorcery game someday. It won't be like...
you should.
Pirate Borg, because I want to be influenced by Moana. I want to be influenced by Pirates of the Caribbean. I want to be influenced by Final Fantasy. I want to have all this weird stuff that is dear to me. And it will inevitably be different. Even if I use, the Mork Borg engine, it will be different, But
Yeah, it's inevitable.
You just have to be
you
intentional.
You couldn't make Pirate Borg like I made it. Like that, it's just not possible. And that's the thing that's beautiful about it is like I couldn't make Primal Quest. Like there's no chance of that happening because we're different people and we have different influences and we have different desires. Like what I want with Pirate Borg and with the Dark Caribbean as a whole, like I just want those things to exist and they don't exist. So I have no option but to create them, really.
Yeah, awesome. And do you feel like you'll be working on other stuff besides Pirate Borg someday, or focus on Pirate Borg? What is your as an artist? Do you want to explore other things for now, or only focusing on Pirate Borg? What's your desire for?
I have 2 projects in the pipeline right now. They're both really big. One is the Dark Caribbean, which is a setting book. It's a setting book for Pirate Borg, but we're also doing a 5th edition version. And we're talking about doing, I think we're maybe just going to do like a OSC bestiary rather than doing a whole third. I don't think we need 3 copies of the same book. But I'm very, like Pirate Borg has done really well and it's been really exciting to work on. But like for me, the real thing is the setting, not the game. It's the Dark Caribbean as a setting. That's the thing I really want people to experience. And I don't want to gatekeep that as far as rule systems. So if you don't want to play Pirate Borg and you want to play 5th edition, or let's say you're not into the Morkborg engine and you want to play with BX, like we want to support all those different styles of play. On top of that,
adapting this stuff could work.
Yeah, I think that's the idea. It's like a zine with the monster stats. On top of that, but like that project is my main thing. I work on it every day, but it's kind of grown to this.
You work on it every day?
Yeah, I work on it every day. Yeah.
Nice.
Like right now, I'll show you this. You can't see this on the stream, but I have this deck of cards here, just a normal deck of cards, and every card has a different NPC written on it. So every day I draw an NPC. And I draw it from the deck and then I illustrate it. And I have of the 54 cards, I'm right before we got on this call, I'm on the 5th to last one. So I almost have all 54 illustrated. So that's pretty exciting.
That's for the book? That's the NPCs you're doing for the book?
There's going to be 54 in the book, and they're all we were going to do a deck of cards, obviously. That's why there's 54 of them.
You turn into like a game for you to motivate yourself? Why did you follow list or something? You made it interesting for you.
Yeah, well, I knew I wanted to do a deck of cards. The deck of cards gets used in one of the player classes in Pirate Borg, and cards are very piratey, and I just thought it would be cool. And that's a good way to like limit so I don't make too many, but also have a goal so I have enough. There's 6 for every major faction and 3 for the smaller factions. But also it's just kind of one of those just keep going thing, like that book that you like. You just got to keep keep pushing forward, and by every day, by setting the morning aside to draw one. At the beginning of the year, I was like, man, this is going to be so much work. And now I'm on the last week of them. I should be done maybe Monday. That's pretty exciting. So,
do you feel like you are learning what you're going to do next when this is done?
Well, okay. So yeah, I guess that's my long answer to your short question is that the literal next thing that we're working on is an adventure book for Pirate Borg. It's called Down Among the Dead. And right now it's going to have 3 like kind of full length adventures. And then a couple of different generators and a spread on Pirate Borg house rules that we've been using internally and that we've heard our community using. So that's really exciting. That Kickstarter should launch this fall, and it's going to have a bunch of other add-ins that we just didn't get to in the first Kickstarter. So we're doing the Pirate Borg GM screen, which I was inspired by seeing your GM screen. We're going to do Devil's Luck /D2
that's
coins,
in one Kickstarter.
Yes, so basically
Dark Caribbean, Down Among the Dead, James Screen. No.
The Dark Caribbean is was gonna be this fall, but I just don't want to rush it, and I really wanted the book to be done before Kickstarter. So yeah, that'll hopefully launch early next year. I don't know. We'll I decided to not rush it. Yeah. But yeah. In the meantime, because we've pushed the Dark Caribbean Kickstarter, we're We're going to get some of the content that was already written for it. We've moved to another book that's a little bit more like adventure focused rather than setting world building focused. Yeah.
Awesome. And that one will be with the gem screen.
With the GM screen, and we're doing a map book and some naval combat tokens. It's going to be a big, I don't want to ramble on about it, but to get to your real question, I have no idea when I'm going to move on from Pirates. I don't see that in the near future, but every now and then I do get burnt out on only living in the Dark Caribbean. And sometimes I'm like, man, I just want to like make some like Breath of the Wild, cozy fantasy NPCs or some sci-fi. I don't know. So, but that's not in the near future, but I'm sure it will happen someday,
And where did this passion for pirates come from?
Oh man. I mean, I've said this a lot that I feel like the genesis, the inception moment for me was probably riding the Pirates of the Caribbean ride when I was like 5 or something.
Wow. I read about it was the game in the park, right?
So, I'm sorry?
It was a game in a park show. Like
it's not a game. It's a ride. It's like an amusement park ride, and it was like the inspiration for the movie came from the ride at Walt Disneyland, and it's just like a very dark and scary ride. And these pirates are like they seem like bad guys, and I just really like that. But then all through my life, I was really into the Pirates of the Spanish Main Punch Out game from WizKids. I love the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. On Stranger Tides by Tim Powers is my favorite book of all time, which supplanted Lord of the Rings. I couldn't believe it, but
wow.
I don't know. On Stranger Tides. Now, Disney optioned it for the 4th movie, but ignore that. It's basically they just took Blackbeard and the Fountain of Youth and threw everything else away, but the book is incredible. It's basically like the beginning of the Dark Caribbean in a novel.
Nice.
Sorcery and dark magic and ghost pirates. Yeah. So.
Very cool. Luke, do you think RPGs are weird by themselves? And if you do or do not, what would be your favorite or your weirdest thing about the role-playing game?
Well, yeah, I think that the hobby as a whole is kind of weird. In a good way, of course. But I think, when you think about normal, if I can dare say that, normal society, like we're talking about people who are using their imagination, they're getting together and rolling dice to create a world in their own imaginations as a group. Like that's not a very normal thing in history, certainly not as a leisure activity. You don't hear stories of like, Victorian social groups getting around and rolling dice and telling stories together. Now, there's often storytelling. That's been a part of humanity from the beginning of time, I can imagine. Mm-hmm. But there's something like kind of new, and it's a new, fresh perspective on how to spend your leisure time, if you will. That being said, though, like I feel like it's the best hobby on the planet. Like it doesn't require drugs or alcohol, though those things are optionally included if you'd like. It requires social interaction. It requires team building, imagination. It's like the best hobby to meet new people. Yes. It's a bit like it can build skills in the youth or your kids of the, I don't know. I feel like if it is weird, maybe it should be,
Almost the only thing missing is exercise.
Yes. And I mean, like you could go LARPing if you wanted to really get your exercise in. Yeah. But yes, I agree. I feel like it should, it should be taught in schools. Like it's like, more, yes. I see only benefits, honestly.
Yeah. Did you I can almost tell, English. I'm speaking English basically because I wanted to play games, I saw, Vampire the Dark Ages and I was like, wow, vampire and, swords and stuff. Yeah, I'm going to get that. And, I started reading this stuff and we're playing with math, so
yeah.
It's playing with math. I started reading books because of this game is inspired by this and by that, so I want to read this. And things said like being social for an autistic person, you have to get friends, you spend time, you have a focus, and it was perfect. And it's something I really hope my kid get into because, as you said, I can see a healthier hobby to get into.
Yeah, and I do remember like when I got into role playing seriously much later in life, but my brother was playing Star Wars. We played D&D a couple times, but he was always playing Star Wars RPGs. And then in high school, he got into Vampire Masquerade, and my parents were very worried because he wanted to go, hang out on college campus with like weird people who dressed up in weird clothes, and they were afraid. I don't know what they were afraid of, but mostly I think they were just afraid because it was weird to them.
Yeah.
And like I think D&D is like, okay, yeah, you're a wizard and you're fighting dragons. It's like, okay, we're clearly pretending, but like Vampire is like a modern setting, and the people are dressing up and they're pretending to be vampires. Like in my parents' heads, they're actually sacrificing animals and drinking blood, baby. I don't know what they were afraid of, but I think you gotta push those like fears out of the way and understand that this is like a really, well, I'm preaching to the choir here. We all know this is the best hobby on the planet. So
my mother once found me the Book of Nod from Vampire the Masquerade. Have you seen that? It's like
I've actually never played Vampire, so I'm very unfamiliar with all of White Wolf's products. Yeah.
So the Book of Nod is kind of a fictitious like vampire Bible. So
like an in-world.
Looks like so it looks like a Bible. It has all this terrible stuff written in it. And she found that and started reading it, and she freaked out,
Yeah, of course. She probably thought it was a real thing. And, I mean, and even if it was, like, you know what? You get one ride on this planet that we know of. You're only judged by yourself at the end of the day. Yeah. Like, if you want to read weird vampiric novels, go for it.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
As long as I'm not doing weird vampiric shit out there.
As long as you're not hurting other people.
Yeah. But I remember my friends who played Vampire a lot and do, the LARPing stuff. And they would start LARPing on the streets. They would get a taxi and start talking about killing people on the taxi, I was like... And they had this story that was like chatting about something like that, killing someone. And when they get to their place and about to pay the tax, and the tax, no, it's okay. You don't need to pay.
Oh, wow.
Because the guy was scared or something like this.
I will say one interesting thing about RPGs, especially historically, or maybe a little less so now, is that it has kind of been, a shelter for people who are considered weird. I remember, like in high school, there were like the groups that were associated with playing Dungeons and Dragons were also considered weird groups of people. But I think that that's a credit to the hobby and not a disservice. Like, first off, there's nothing wrong with being weird, but that this hobby is a great way for people who have any number of like
Everyone
uncomfortable.
Can play.
Everybody can play, and it's a place for people who maybe don't feel comfortable in normal society, who are quote weird, to feel less quote weird in a setting, and help them find their place, in the normal day-to-day life. Hopefully, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree, and I mean, considering all my friends and everything we're learning today, I think it's a hobby that welcomes weirdos and helps us find each other and help us feel okay about being weird, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
Look, you talked about a little bit of our creative routine, like you wake up and you draw cards and you draw something. But I wanted to ask you, do you have any weird creative rituals that you perform to maybe help you get into the mood to start working, or just sit down and start working and no BS?
I mean, I wouldn't say that I have any weird rituals. Like I'm very not, I don't want to say artsy, but I'm very much a craftsman when it comes to my work, I'll say. So I don't know, maybe I should spend some more time to get into the headspace. But mostly I try to get up. I try to not get on my phone, which is very, very hard, but I try to like not engage with any of the other parts of the quote business. I try to go straight to being creative in the morning. And then I find that I'm not, looking for that dopamine hit from like, did my posts get likes, or do I have new patrons, or like, I definitely don't look at sales figures. I just try to go straight to being creative, and hopefully that's like will steer my mind into the right place. Because
Very
one
healthy,
thing one thing I've really found working in this industry is that, like, especially being self-employed, like, at the end of the day, literally the day, and the end of your creative lifespan in this industry, and at the end of your life, like, the only thing that will really, like, be a judgment of your time spent is your own, look in. So I try to really think about, like, well, I want to make decisions. Like, I want to enjoy my time making this stuff and not be stressed over it. And I want to, like, look back on the work I've done on these projects and not only be proud of it, but also remember those times fondly. Like, nobody wants to look back on something that's commercially successful and, like, hate the time they spent on it. So I've really had to tell myself, like, look, it's what's more important for me as a solo creator is to enjoy this process and remember that the old adage that it's the journey, not the destination. While the destination does matter when you're making a product for other people, what's more important for me is that, like, I am proud of not only the destination, but the journey. So I think that's maybe the weird thing I try to think about in the morning or daily as I'm working on a thing. Like, I got deadlines and I want to get it out the door and I want it to be really good. But also there's another, an often neglected pillar of that creation process, which is, am I enjoying my life? Like, I went from one dream job to an even more dreamy job. And I don't think it's fair for me, for the, like, for the rest of humanity to not be enjoying this. Like, it's such a cool thing to get to, like, imagine things and then give them to other people for them to imagine them too. Like, I have to really just embrace enjoying that process, which is hard, very hard sometimes. A lot of creative self-doubt.
For sure. I mean, we always reference success through recognition and results and awards, and we think we see our peers releasing book after book after book, and we're like, I'm doing this book for like 2 years and it's not coming out.
Yes. Oh my God. So I feel that so much.
And we feel pressure to just get it done. But what you said is very wise. We have to enjoy this. It has to be something that's pleasurable to do. Otherwise, the work will suffer as well. I don't think you can do the best work that you can do just rushing, just because we want to have results. We want to, because somebody's releasing something, I have to release it too, or being obsessed. Oh, I have to be perfect because this award. I want to anything like this. So,
well, it's also hard too with especially Kickstarter awards, but also like Kickstarter, Patreon, social media accounts. Like, all those things are literal metrics, and they're really hard to ignore. Like, I have a great example. There's another creator who I followed before I got started, has a really, really high Instagram count. And the other day I was just reflecting on, like, man, like, I'm sitting there with this not imposter syndrome, but this, like, doubt in myself.
The thief of joy, right?
Yeah. And I'm like, man, this guy, like, how does he has so many Instagram followers? Like, but then I go and look at his Patreon count. We're both Patreon creators, and I have 3 times the number of patrons that he does. And I had to sit and say to myself, this guy could have the same conversation about me. And both conversations are so unhealthy. Like, who cares how many patrons or Instagram followers we have? Like, that information is not, like, at all important to my self-worth as a person, to my reach as a creator, to, like, the completion of my future projects. Like, who cares? And that's a really, really, really hard thing to remember when you're daily going through your social media, share your work process and watching people around you have more successful posts,
Do you remember when you had this realization, or do you remember someone that taught you that, or you read that somewhere about this?
that specific one. I mean, I think it's an continual struggle and internal conversation I have. But honestly, those 3 books you recommended really helped. Especially, I found the most helpful one to be Show Your Work, because the Steal Like an Artist one, I have already internalized that. It was nice to see his thoughts on paper, but like that was already a part of my process. But
it's a nice reminder, right?
It's a nice reminder, yes. But Show Your Work was
sometimes.
Yes. I mean, I read it again. I mean, I read it and I still took things out of it. But I could show you my copy of. Actually, I think you can probably see it in this. No, it's not in this frame. But Show Your Work
is great. Yeah.
I have so many bookmarks in it just to be like, just so I can flip to it, because that book is a different approach to how social media works than I had thought before, and one I much prefer. One that it's like, it's not about, you're not making content to get new followers.
No,
you're making content for the followers that you already have, the people who care about you. And if they don't care about you, like, who cares about them? And the number's not important. It's more about sharing your process with the people who care about your process. Like, so I think that has helped me kind of come full circle. I mean, I don't want to say I'm not complete. It's not fully full circle, but this daily process of trying to enjoy the process and ignore the metrics of other people's success,
Yeah. One thing that I love about Show Your Work is how, at least for me, I learned that I can just focus on doing the work and sharing the process. I don't have to do the work, wait it to be done, and then share something, and then do a marketing something. Just share what you're doing. That's it.
Yeah.
People, it works. You get feedback, and that's everything that people say. Oh, I say that I'm terrible at marketing. No, but you do really well. I just follow, see like an artist, show your work, and that's it.
I mean, another thing I try to think about in that cycle, there are artists who I really look up to, who are commercially not as successful, if you're looking at those benchmarks I said to ignore. But there are guys that I consider to be much more talented than myself, both naturally and in their process of studying and improving their art. And so many of those guys, it's not just like one, it's not just girls or guys too, guys and girls. I'm just using that as a catch-all. They, like so many of those artists, I wish they would show their work more. Some of them will always just put up finished product, or they'll just do like, oh, here's the black and white and here's color. And there's this one guy in particular who, like, he's only done a few reels where it's him actually drawing. And I will study them. I will sit there and be like, okay, wait, what's the brushstroke? How fast is he going? Like, I'm just sitting there craving more. And I try to think about that when it comes to my work. Like, I don't think of myself as advanced as these guys, but I'm a published artist. Like, there have to be other people on the planet that are curious about my process, even if I don't think there are, Like, it's just really hard to remember. Like, I have a lot of creative self-doubt. So sometimes I'm like, wait, why would anyone want to know how I do it? And I was like, well, you know what? It's not about whether you want to know how you did it. It's about the other people that you don't know who aren't telling you they want to know how you did it, I think.
Yeah. And also register for yourself too. I mean, because we change the way we work, the stuff that we're doing, and sometimes we forget especially with the self-doubt thing. For me, I have this a lot too, and I forget about the stuff that I've done, even games that I've done, and I have this, this folder where I save nice things that people that I care about, so about me, so other creators and people say good things about me, I save them, and sometimes, I don't look at that too much, but knowing it's there, knowing that's, not that bad, and it's
I think that's nice. It's also like that's the kind of stuff that's why you're doing it. That those nice words, like, those should mean much more to you than how many likes your post got.
Oh yeah.
At least I would hope so.
For sure. You mentioned artists you look up to, and one question I always love asking guests here is, if you have any maybe a model, a role model, or artist, a creator, it can be from our field, from any other field in music, literature, I don't know, cinema, that maybe you
Oh.
look up to and you try to emulate the way they approach their work or the way they position themselves in the scene, in the field? Do you have anyone like this?
Yeah, I have. I think I actually have a pretty big list now, which I didn't not when I started. Oh man, I could go on this for a while. I think on the non-art side, meaning like writing, design, layout, my biggest influence is Sean McCoy.
Oh yeah.
I love Sean's work. Sean is I don't know his official title, but he's like one of the owners at Tuesday Night Games, and he's the head on Mothership.
Yeah.
Sean's work is the best in the industry, I think. I think his approach to information design and layout and
Incredible.
understanding the purpose of a role-playing game product is he's the best. His theory is really good as well. He does, his blog and interview content is just really good at he's a very analytical thinker and knows how to separate art from function. He knows that those both play a role, but I just, every time he puts something out or says something, I want to know what it is.
I'm super anxious for the Mothership box set first edition.
Oh yes, I'm so, and I've been pinging Sean every 6 months or so to come on my podcast, and he keeps saying yes later. I'm hoping that once this thing ships, I can actually sit down and talk with him. We'll see.
I hope I can reach out someday to him too. Yeah.
Yes, you should definitely have him on the show. As far as that side of things, Sean is my biggest influence. On the art side of things, man, the list is really long. I think you have to mention Johan Nor because he's the artist for all the Mork Borg, Cyborg, whatnot things. And I think that his approach really helped me rethink what the purpose of art in an RPG is. I think if you come from like a 5e background, you see this really high level Magic at the Gathering style art that is like, you have to, put a week into every piece and it looks almost like a painting of what you would see if you took a photograph. And it's very like, how can you make a book with 300 pieces of art in it and do all that yourself? Well, you couldn't. If you did that, it would take 10 years to make a book like that. And Johan's approach is much more like, you don't need any of that to imagine what this monster looks like. In fact, I'm going to show you less, and your imagination is going to fill in the gaps, and it's going to be like I told you, a really captivating story without pictures or with a very ominous picture that it's much better for a role-playing game. It looks like this. Oh, you can imagine it in your head. Like, I love that.
Yeah, it's more impactful and it's in line with the setting too, with the feel of the setting. It's the vibes. It's the vibes of the
that was another big thing with Mork Borg in general. You can get so much out of that book just by thumbing through it. You don't have to have read 300 pages of black and white 2-column text to understand that setting. Yeah. And then I think if I can maybe shout out 2 more guys.
For sure.
Well, I really like Luis Prado's work. Are you familiar with him?
Luis Prado.
Yeah, his Instagram is LuizPrado04. He's a freelance artist. I don't own anything that his work is in, but his line work is like incredible. I will never be able to draw like this guy. I really like his line work as well as Pig Hands, God Machine. These guys are both incredible artists. And then the Swordfish Islands guy, Gabriel, I think his last name is Hernandez. It's Worthy Enemies is his Instagram. And I same kind of thing. Like, his work is by request in Dark Hot Springs Island, for example, very unfinished. You can see sketch lines in it. It's uncolored. And I feel like that does more for your at the table, this is what it looks like, now imagine it, than a full painting would. And I like that a lot. So those are my immediate answers. Oh, also Jack Badashi. He does all the maps for Beetle and Grimm. He goes by Stinky Goblin on Instagram, Stinky Goblin _maps. He did this like map pack he redrew Curse of Strahd battle map scale, and it's like some of the best battle maps. His like once again, his black and white line art, it doesn't get better. Okay, that's my shout outs.
Yeah. What would you say is the weirdest thing about Pirate Borg? Your favorite weirdest thing about Pirate Borg?
I think the most. I mean, it's not even that unique, but the most unique thing about it probably is I have two answers. The first is ash. Ash is the psychoactive chemical left behind when you destroy undead. We describe it often as a spice from Dune meets magic mushrooms. It's basically this commodity that makes the entire setting work, and that pirates will risk their lives to hunt down undead to, hoard this psychotropic substance. And the West India Company is manufacturing it into cosmetics, and the Inquisition wants to rid it off the planet because they don't like its religious implications. So that's probably the weirdest part of the setting, but also the one that really makes it tick. Why go to the Dark Caribbean when it's so deadly? Well, ash is why. And then I think the other thing that's weird in a totally different way is that Pirate Borg has, in my humble opinion, very successful naval combat rules, which is a very hard thing to accomplish in an RPG. They're still a little bit crunchier than, say, normal Morkborg, but I think I've managed to find a way to approach naval combat in a role-playing game in a way that makes sense for a role-playing game that is still somewhat true to what it might be like to fight aboard ships. So that's weird in that that's a very hard thing to accomplish, I think, and I think I'm proud of my approach. I'll put it that way.
Awesome. Yeah, and ash it's certainly my favorite weird part of it too. And makes me wonder about the origins of this and inspirations, but we'll talk about this part. Hello, wonderful weirdos. This is Diogo Nogueira again, and today I'd like to talk to you about one of my favorite games, a game that I created, and if you listen to the podcast, I love dinosaurs, and it's called Primal Quest. It is a weird stone and sorcery adventure game. It's a NSR game, which is this game that caters to the old school style of play, but has more modern and more cinematic gameplay adapted to our modern sensibilities. It has adventure with dinosaurs, ancient civilizations, spirity, sorcery, aliens, elder gods, and much, much more. It's very pulpy. It has, a complete rule set, a mini hex crawl, an adventure introductory adventure. You can find it at Exalted Funeral, itch.io, Drive-Thru RPG, and your best local game store. And we're releasing more and more stuff for it, so stay tuned and play Primal Quest. So let's get back to the weird with our chat. I wanted to ask you, what would be your favorite weirdest game you ever played, or maybe a very weird game you played recently that made an impression on you? And it doesn't necessarily has to be a role-playing game. It can be a board game. It can be a video game or anything like this.
I mean, I think if the question is what's my favorite thing I've played recently that is weird, I think my answer is Dungeon Crawl Classics. I don't think it's the weirdest thing I've played, but I think on the weird to I like it axis, it's probably the furthest up in that category. Just because it's the game that I always pictured that D&D was. Like when I saw dudes in the 90s with long hair who were into metal bands and then they went and played D&D. That's the game I pictured that they were playing. That this really crazy dark magic could happen, and that monsters were weird and terrifying, and there's just the world is I don't know, it's and the maps are so, Doug Kovacs's maps are so cool. It's just a really weird RPG with a lot of really cool rules to back it up. And it's designed. We always use this term in the industry, top down. It's a very top down game, and that Joe Goodman went and read all the Appendix N stuff, and then wrote a book based on reading that stuff, rather than coming up with a rules system, and then making a setting to fit those rules. So I think Dungeon Crawl Classics is my answer. Like I said, I don't think it's the weirdest game I've played, but it is very cool game.
Oh yeah, for sure, and it's one of my favorites. So in this line about DCC, it's what you always imagine D&D would be like. It's a great line for a game.
Absolutely that, and also I think Shadow Dark also fits that line. But I don't find Shadow Dark to be particularly weird. I find it to be like, oh, this is the role-playing game of Moria that I always expected. That's the other one. Like, I expected D&D to be like you're going into Moria, and that's what Shadow Dark is. And it does that perfectly.
Oh, for sure. And then, do you remember the really weirdest one you played? A really weird game you played?
I'm trying to think. I think maybe the weirdest one I own is probably, there are parts of Into the Odd, especially the dungeon in the remastered, the Coral Throne, that's very weird. It's like weird on the when you're talking about weird overlapping with the Gonzo, where it's like, oh, this room doesn't make sense, and the things in this room don't make sense with the things in the next room, and you get that Into the Odd. I also think that Troika is pretty weird. Once again, in a good way, but sometimes it's like, oh, what this is its own thing. Like, this isn't, I know that thing has its influences, and this is another.
It isn't like a flavor of fantasy. It's its own
thing.
Weirdest. Yeah. It's weirder than fantasy.
I think they say this in Steel, like an artist, but one of the things is like, if you think something seems really original, you just don't know its influences. And I think that's probably what's going on with Troika to some extent. Also, Ultraviolet Grasslands, another awesome, weird adventure. Did you work on that?
No.
I don't know why I thought you did.
Yeah. It's incredible work of art and gaming and
and also
Luka
there's
Regic,
Luca. Yeah, I think a lot of the stuff Exalted Funeral publishes is just like, oh, this nobody else would publish this, and that's why Exalted Funeral is so cool. He's like, this, oh, now you own a trash barge. What's that one called? So you own a trash barge? Like, it's an RP. Like, come on, I'm here for it.
It's great. Look, do you have any other hobbies besides role-playing games? Maybe something you do just for yourself, or?
Oh man, I really need more. I think I probably had more. I think before I got into the industry, but I am so obsessive. I do enjoy hiking. I do enjoy board games, and video games, I guess. But yeah, I'm pretty consumed with role-playing games at the moment. I think probably video games is my answer. I know that's not a very exciting one, but I've been playing. See, this is how little I can escape. So yesterday I was playing in this game called In Other Waters. Have you heard of it?
No. In Other Waters?
It's an indie game. But once again, indie game, but you look at the credits and they're like a bunch of people, but there's one head creative guy on it. But he made a mothership module called Tidebreak. Oh. But this game is like, it's really cool game in that you're on, it's very Subnautica, but the user interface is like you are the computer that this scientist is talking to. So you don't get to see like full 3D renders of the underwater. It's just like a blip on a little map of coral reefs.
Wow.
And you can scan and take materials and talk to the scientists, but it's not a big modern 3D game. But like I said, I found this game because this guy made a mothership module, and it's about underwater coral reefs, and I literally just released a coral reef pack. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, even in my hobbies, like I'm so into the role-playing games and I'm so into world building that like I have a stack of cyberpunk books on my shelf that I will not read. Like I have Expanse, which is it's more hard sci-fi, but I won't read it because I don't want to take my brain out of like dark fantasy Caribbean history vibes. Like I feel like once I start going down that road, I'm going to make some other thing. I don't know. So though I am reading Dune right now. I'm rereading Dune.
And
so go ahead.
Have you read Dune before? I haven't read it yet, but I mean,
I read about a third of it as a kid, and then I listened to the full audiobook a couple years ago. But then after seeing part 2, I really enjoyed part 1, but I kind of was waiting to really, sink my teeth in until the second one came out, and I left that theater like as into Dune as an IP as I was The Matrix or Lord of the Rings when I left the theater. So I immediately drove to Barnes and Noble and bought I actually bought it on Amazon because I have money, whatever. Regardless, I bought the collector's edition and I've been reading that and I'm like obsessed, re-obsessed, I should say.
Yeah. You mentioned, not wanting to read about cyberpunk, not get out of this dark Caribbean vibe. So my question is, because I do that for myself as this effort to keep this passion burning to make better stuff also too. Like for Primal Quest, I always keep interested in the fantasy prehistoric stuff. Do you have anything that you do to keep this passion for Pirate Dark Caribbean stories and adventures in your mind, besides not reading cyberpunk stuff? Do you constantly consume content of this nature? How many times have you watched Pirates of the Caribbean or something like this?
Oh yeah, it's constant basically. I have a pretty large library now, but I have an entire section of it that's just pirate related, and that includes all my published pirate role-playing games. It includes history books. It includes things like Piratology, which is kind of like a kid's pop-out book that's very good for inspiration. I don't want to say kids, but it's like, it has like you can pull out a letter of marque or you can pull out a treasure map, Nice. I have a lot of stuff like that. I have a lot of history books. I have like one that's called War at Sea, The Age of Sail. And one of the biggest influences for me before I got into this was that WizKids game. It's a Pirates of the Spanish Main. They have really great art for all the NPCs and like the styling and like the world building behind the cards and ships in that game. I just wanted to be in that world. So sometimes when I get lost, and I get lost pretty frequently in my creative process, I'll just go back to those. Sea of Thieves, Assassin's Creed Black Flag, like all the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. And also like I'll put these things on, but especially movies, I'll put them on while I'm drawing. If I'm drawing something that's not super intensive in my brain, like right before we got on this call, I was working on today's NPC, which is the son of D'Artagnan. He's kind of the like French he's like a French aristocrat, but he's secretly part of this thing called the Endgame Society, which is trying to overthrow the French monarchy. So I had Man in the Iron Mask on while I was drawing NPC.
Wow,
I do that a lot. So I'm always trying to like be in these worlds because like I said, I get lost where like, the colors on this spread I'm working on aren't right, or like the art isn't right, or like I'm too deep writing on a topic that I don't really enjoy, and I'll forget that like this is a small little branch of this big wonderful world that I live in called the Dark Caribbean, which is I like to describe it as it's kind of like have you seen that movie Midsummer? It's like same guys who did I think it's A23. Regardless.
No, I haven't. But yeah.
It's like it's
on
horror.
my list.
It's I like to describe it as like it's beautiful horror. Like it's like the world doesn't have to be like blue tinted and dark all the time. Like it can be bright and sunny with like tropical waves and still be absolutely horrifying. So like that's a fun place for me to live in as a creator, because I can like imagine I'm on a tropical beach, but then I look over and there's a crazy monster, So I'm always living there partially,
And that makes you valuable the beauty more, right? Because you can lose it at any moment. So
yes, that's true.
It's a really nice contrast, because if everything is so bleak, what's the fuck point, right? Why the fuck I'm here? So,
yeah.
That's great. Look, we're about 1 hour in, and now I wanted to ask you more personal questions. And since we talked about Ash a little bit, I wanted to ask you maybe if you had any weird experiences with mind-altering substance, and did you have any experience that maybe changed the way you think about life, the way you think about yourself, or have you learned something? I mean,
oh yeah, I have. I mean, so just a little bit of my background. In high school, I was less of a gamer like I am now, and more into music, music and drugs. I used to be a drum and bass rave DJ in the late '90s, and then I went to school for music and was in a jam band called Mondo Gecko, and then got really into lighting design, and now I work for bands traveling the world lighting up music and stuff. But yeah, I think psychedelics have definitely had a very important role in my life from bullet point history standpoint, but more so my identity. I will say to this day that eating LSD was one of the more transformative moments of my life. I remember just sitting there thinking, I wish my mom could experience this, which I'm sure will never happen. It's not really a part of my life anymore. I think my psyche's a little too fragile to be re-scrambled at any moment. But I've had, especially as a teenager, a very, very many nights of transformable. I don't have the words to express, like that moment that Neo feels in the Matrix where he's like, wait, what? Like, I just felt that, especially in regard to my emotional view of the world. I used to really be like a very sad, depressed person. And I think psychedelics helped me kind of like reevaluate myself and what I want in life.
Yeah. Some people say that taking psychedelics can compare, like, we're living this life and we're like, everybody's on the floor and seeing there's these mountains, the sky, like clouds, and you take the LSD, you get to go to the top of the mountain and you see the view from above, and you can see your problems are not that big, all these things are happening, and everybody's on the same thing, and stuff like this. But when you get down, and people say, "Oh, isn't it worse to get down?" You didn't. People ask, "Oh, do you get lower?" It doesn't matter, because you got to see what's up there, and you remember the view. Like, it's one of those things that, drugs, it's things momentarily and you sacrifice so much. But some of this stuff, especially with psychedelics and stuff, what you experience sticks with you, because it's really transformative. You actually realize things about life and yourself, and it's perspective in a way, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I feel like, especially with my family relationships, the kinds of things that I've reflected on with psychedelics involved, you really like you said, really puts things into perspective. Often the things that you're beating yourself up about or that you're worried about, you can realize are not at all as important as you thought. But they should probably have a larger part in my current life. But I just feel like I get too weird. I have this kind of ongoing theme that I feel like I really am.
Be really safe to take this stuff, and it's not something you do it, willy-nilly, right? You have to have a safe space with safe people, be well, and all.
I mean, I've definitely had experiences where I literally thought the cartel was about to kill me. And I don't want to go back to that, I literally thought that was, I was in final moments of my life, which was totally in my head. But I've had other moments where I have thought that I am a wizard, literally really am a wizard, and have just forgotten my past identity, and that I'm this long lived soul, and that this is all an illusion, and maybe it is, but sometimes getting too close to that, it's like you've rolled on the madness table in Mothership, or you're going mad in DCC, and it's sometimes I'm I just want to, even if those things are correct, sometimes I just want to actually live in the like false veil of reality and just go back to making RPGs,
For sure. You mentioned these things were all while you were on LSD, or did you had episodes you thought about all this stuff besides the
it's not just, I mean, mushrooms, but I've actually to the point now, I think that my brain was so, I don't know if this is a cautionary tale, but so rewired in my youth that if I have a bad history at the dentist of being really afraid of my, I can't get numb very well. I know this is like a little behind the scenes, but I can't get numb very well. So for a while there, I would have, give me the nitrous, and I had one day where I don't know if they had it too high or I just was like too triggered from my youth, but I was thinking that like, oh no, this really is an illusion, and the dentist is a check-in for that. And like, if I look outside, all the cars are the same color, and I had to have my wife leave work and come pick me up because I was like so distraught by this like psychedelic vision just from being at the dentist, So it's like,
wow,
it's a pervasive thought in my psyche now. I use with caution, kids.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And don't use as a kid, wait.
No, don't.
You're 20 something if you can. I mean, I was too afraid of this stuff as a kid, so I just did this a few years ago. So as an adult, so
that was probably wise. I mean, I was very suicidal when I was younger, and I think psychedelics helped me get past that. So I always want to put that as a disclaimer, but man, you're playing with fire. You're playing with some explosive stuff. So playing with fireworks.
And have you ever had any other kind of, weird experiences, maybe out of body experiences, or have you ever had any kind of near death experience, anything out of the ordinary?
No, I mean, I can't stress how much I am a privileged individual. I've never broken a bone. Both my parents are still alive. I have never, the closest I've been to dying was probably...
Didn't you skate? You said you were like doing skate stuff. Didn't you never break a bone even?
No, but I also never learned to kick flips. Like I'm not a very adventurous when it comes to physical stuff. I'm kind of a wimp. Know thyself though, right? Like I know what I'm... Yeah,
I broke my bones in like being thrown in like rock concerts, like the mosh thing.
Oh yeah, nice. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I've moshed a few times when I was younger, and I got out of there quickly because I was scared for my body. I've never had like, I mean, I think the closest I had a few things that when driving. I was in an accident like right after getting my license, where I almost totaled my car, but I don't think none of those were like the transformative moment that you're maybe searching for, because they were just like, God, I got to be a better driver. I got to pay attention, change my CDs less.
You weren't scared for your life during the accident, or was just a normal accident, or no?
I was scared. I have been scared for my life a few times, but very rarely. Like, I don't know that has changed anything. I just be like, okay, cool, back to normal.
Yeah, forget everything. Just keep going. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, of course.
I mean, I do have. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you were saying. I was going to ask about religion, spirituality, and this kind of stuff.
I mean, I guess since we're going deep here, like one thing, since I live in Colorado, which is at high altitude, and a couple of years ago, I got a CPAP, which is like, I know this is like super boring old guy stuff, but
we are old guys, so yeah.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, I don't know if anybody wants to hear about this, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. So at altitude, you don't get as much oxygen, and I was having a hard time breathing at night. And this CPAP thing basically like helps me breathe at night for me. It helps with snoring too, but for me, it helps my brain will like slow down in breathing. And I've noticed that if I don't use it now, like I took a nap yesterday because we had a early morning flight, right? And I'll have really, really crazy dreams, really intense dreams when my brain doesn't have enough oxygen. And I will often think that I am dying and that the world is ending, or that this illusion is coming to an end. I don't know. So I guess maybe I have that thing that you're talking about. I have it pretty regularly, but it's just because I am sleeping without enough oxygen. So yeah, sorry.
Yeah. No, that's what I was gonna ask about dreams and stuff, and that's not great. We're going through it because it's kind of risky, right? But you seem to remember your dreams too. Do you usually remember them, or only during the bad nights?
I often will remember them while they're. Yeah, I'll remember them. I mean, often they fade. They fade very quickly.
Oh yeah,
but
of
sometimes,
course.
Yeah, sometimes
But
they're
normally,
key.
yeah.
Yeah, but I don't remember them that well long term. Like I can't recount to you a bunch of my dreams, but I definitely will have dreams. Like my wife will be like, "Man, you got to like stop reading so much horror," or like, "Man, you like sometimes it'll really be a fun dream where it's like very fantasy driven, And she'll be like, "I never have dreams like that. My dreams are like my teeth break at work, I have those dreams too, but I definitely have a very active imagination. That's for sure.
Your teeth are breaking, but there's also a skeleton, just running behind it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And did you ever use any of the stuff from your dreams to? Did you steal from yourself? Did you steal from your dreams, maybe to use on anything you're working on?
No. I mean, I have a lot of tools for gathering ideas for my role-playing games, but they're almost never self-informed from my own experiences outside of visiting things like actual ships, or I go to a lot of aquariums and things from visiting historic sites. But like, I don't really pull from my own life or my own dreams. No, I'm not that kind of creator. Like I said, I'm much more of a like craftsman. I'm not like, "Ooh, I had this dream and I'm going to put it into my art." There are people
I don't know,
who do
maybe
that, but
maybe you have a really scary monster or something, and what the fuck? Yeah,
that's not a bad idea. But I haven't had anything like that I've wanted to put in. Maybe I'll get there. We'll see.
Yeah. You mentioned tools for gathering ideas. Yeah, that's the stuff you mentioned, going to aquariums, historic sites, or do you have actually tools like cards or anything you use to maybe spark some ideas?
Oh man, a lot of movies, really. I guess I don't.
Okay.
I don't. Yeah, a lot. Movies
that's the
and
tools
books.
you mentioned. Okay.
Yeah.
Movies
I think.
and books, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in other RPGs, I try not to, I try to do new things where I can. But I find that like history alone is such an inspiration. There's so much inspiration in the Dark Caribbean from real, like half the NPCs I think are based on or were historic characters, like, Charles Vane and Blackbeard, Ponce de Leon, that kind of thing. So yeah, there's like for me, really, I don't have a problem with inspiration. I have a problem with time. I just don't have enough time to do all the things that I want to do.
Oh yeah, and how much time do you work on your stuff?
I think my answer would be all my time. That's not true. I take the evenings off, but like when I'm as
you
I'm
work
sure
on
you
weekends too.
I work when I can get away with it. Yes. I am married, and I would like to stay that way. But I don't. I have no hard.
Get away with it.
Yeah, I have no hard lines about not working on weekends because, like, I love what I do. It's not work for me.
It's as you said, it's our hyper focus in a way.
Like these NPCs I've been drawing. I take the weekends off from those because they are a lot of work, and I want to have a mental break. But I'm almost done with that, so I think I'll probably switch to drawing islands next, and I'll probably take the weekends off from that. But like, I mean, for me, like I said, like I don't really play video games that aren't in some way informative for the either game design or world building. So it's pretty much, I am replaying Halo 2 right now. I'll say that. That's the little self-indulgent, but you got to have some of that, right?
Nice. Yeah, of course. And to rest a little bit, right? And
yeah. I mean,
I love Primal Quest, but sometimes I rest from Primal Quest working on some other game. And,
I really need to
rest
do
from
that.
each other. Yeah,
I really needed to have another creative project. I have a couple of Morkborg hacks that I'm working on just for fun. I have one called "See You in Hell," which is a Star Wars hack of Morkborg that will never see commercial light of day for obvious reasons.
Just
even if
call
I could,
something else.
If I could get the license for Star Wars, they would never want me to make a Mork board game, I don't think. But it's not for that. The point is that it's just for fun. So
the hobby
we'll
thing.
see. Yeah, that's fun because literally I'm laying it out in InDesign, but I use all the old awesome black and white art from the West End Games RPG.
Nice.
Because I'm like, this is just for me. Maybe I'll share it someday, but it's not for commercial use, and that's fun. Like to go and do an IP like that and be like, you know what, I'm only here to have fun. So
please show me when you're done. I'll show to you.
Oh yeah, I will definitely send it to you. Yeah, and the idea is
Awesome.
it's called, like I said, it's called See You in Hell. So it's like you can't play as a Jedi. Omens, Devil's Luck is the only use of the Force that happens.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. Like I said, it'll probably never be a thing, but
It's great. Yeah.
I
have Shotgun Diaries from John Wick.
yes,
Kind of his zombie survival game.
yeah.
I have one called the Lightsaber Diaries,
Oh,
which is
nice.
right at the beginning of the Empire, so trying to escape the Empire. You can play as Jedi and stuff. So yeah,
That
we'll never
sounds
see the
very
night of
fun.
publication. But I did layout, I did the InDesign, I did a cover.
Yeah, it's fun to do that. It's fun to do.
it's for
It's hard to hold
yourself,
on to that as I think Drew Gasco was saying on one of our panels that like it's after he got into, what was he saying, when he got into video games, he didn't play video games anymore. And I was like, well, that's not the case for role-playing games. Like I play more role-playing games now that for fun than I ever did before I got into the industry.
But for example, there's some people that work on DCC that they work so much on DCC that they don't play DCC. They play something else,
I mean, I understand that, but I obviously I'm always running Pirate Borg. It's yeah. I mean, I also feel like I kind of owe it to people if I'm going to make things for Pirate Borg that I should know what it's like to play the game. Like, I don't want to be one of those creators that like make stuff for my game and then never play test it. Like, I mean, there are guys that do that. There's nothing wrong with doing that, I guess. But I'm more concerned with providing the best experience possible. And I think a big part of that is playtesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Look, now asking a little bit maybe about your beliefs. Do you have any sort of religion? Are you a spiritual person? Do you follow any kind of philosophy or anything that maybe helps you navigate life in general?
Oh man, no, I'm definitely not a religious person. I think I probably walked.
Do you believe in God?
I think I probably walked that line between like agnosticism and atheism. The biggest thing. I mean, we're getting deep here, but I think the biggest thing for me is that, like I said, I feel so privileged and lucky that it's hard for me to believe that there's not some fate thing happening out there that I don't understand. Just because, like, I don't know. Like when we were talking the other day about, you said that you'd seen murders and stuff in Brazil. Like that doesn't even like comprehend in my worldview because I have never witnessed things like that. So I feel like if this is reality and we are walking in a real world, like if I'm not being looked out for in some way, I've just really, really rolled well on the random encounter tables, at least so far.
To be honest, I hope you just rolled really well, because the thing is, I'm privileged, I think that's a God, but what about everyone else that is fucked? Did they do anything to deserve it to be fucked? I mean,
that's
I wouldn't want to have a God that did that, That's
what I say, privilege, man, because I don't feel like there's certainly nothing I've done to deserve a good hand. Like
it just happens. It is what it is.
I don't, I don't spend a big amount of my time working on charity things like I probably should. Like I know that I'm a pretty selfish creator, hopefully not too selfish of a life partner, but I definitely could be less so. So it's not like I don't believe that there's any kind of, I'm being rewarded, So maybe I've just been dealt a good hand, I guess. I don't know. I feel very thankful for that. And I do think that morality is a thing. I consider myself 100% a chaotic good individual. I feel like I make a lot of decisions. Like, for example, at GaryCon, I bought my friends 2 copies of Shadow Dark. from the Black Blade Publishing guys who make OSRIC, and I got home and realized that he had only charged me for one copy. And I reached out to the guy and I told him so, and I sent him the money for the extra copy. I like to think that like I have a strong moral compass, but that is not steered by any form of organized religion, you know? So yeah.
Do you know where did you got that from? Did you learn that from your parents? How did you acquire that?
Yeah, I think my parents, and I mean, yeah, my parents for sure, my upbringing, and I think just my own experiences in life. I think I'm fairly socially intelligent, and I think I can tell when things happen that I don't like. So I like to think that I have learned from those experiences and learned not to treat people the ways that I've not liked being treated. You know, I think over the past few weeks, even there have been a couple instances when I've been treated in a way that I really did not like. And I've responded in a way that I was not as proud of as I could be. So those kinds of experiences through my life, I've looked back on and been like, okay, I don't want to treat people like that person treated me, but also I could be better at treating people than I treated that person or that situation looking back. So I think I don't know, like I don't think there's any kind of higher motivation for that moral, like I said, moral compass, but I do think that is a strong motivator in myself. You know, like when people ask me questions about being in the industry, you know, or they ask for advice, I really try my hardest to not ignore those or let those things slip through the cracks, like has happened to me so many times when I've reached out to the people I look up to. But that is, you know, that's always a struggle, and I could always be a better person. So, yeah.
You always mention about, you know, you just said that, like being a better person and feeling sometimes selfish, maybe with your time or something. And do you have any time you sit down to reflect upon yourself? Do you do anything? You mentioned about trying to be a better person, being thankful. Do you take any time to do those reflections, or to have any kind of gratitude practice that helps you improve yourself in this way? Or
no, I should. I mean, I this year I've been going to the gym and working out pretty regularly, so there's more time for self-reflection.
That's something, yeah.
But that's not really time that I've spent working on how I treat other people, which I think is something I probably should spend more time. I mean, like that is important to me, but it is not as important in my daily practice as a human that as it is if I wrote it down on paper. You know, I definitely spend all of my free time, quote, working. I wouldn't call it work, but you know what I'm saying, like working towards Limithron things. And I don't spend nearly enough time, you know, reflecting on how I could, you know, like how my relationship with my wife could be better. Like I don't spend enough time on that compared to what how much I spend working on crafting NPCs, you know. But that's hard, man. That's you know, that's hard.
Yeah, it's stuff stuff we go through, and it's hard for me too, and something I'm still learning and getting better, and I like to talk about other people that goes to something similar and see how they're doing, how they're feeling, and
I mean, I'm almost like I'm 40 and I don't have kids, and we've decided to not have kids, so it's kind of like, and I have a niece who I just got back from hanging out with all weekend. She's 3. So like you start to think like, well, my niece, she makes me feel like life is long and life is short because she's growing up so fast. And because like, I am not going to have that in my life, but I am going to have like much more time for the projects that I want, you know, like my brother, his time is like the amount of time he gets to spend working on just whatever he wants is very limited. And for me, I can literally work on whatever I want all day. Like literally, if I was like, I'm not going to go to work today, I could just not do that. Or I'm going to spend all day drawing a map of something I've never drawn before. Or I'm going to write an adventure. I'm going to work on the Star Wars adventure for 20 hours. Like I could do that, but like I don't. I work on the thing I think I need to be working on. Like I have this such strong drive to complete the project that I'm in. that like it's
That's
really hard for
awesome.
me to take time for myself. I mean, it's awesome that I have.
Yeah.
There are
Yeah,
awesome parts
it's a
to
balance.
it. It's a
Yeah,
balance,
yeah,
yes. Like it's awesome. Like I have a game that is published because I have that hardworking drive.
Yeah.
I didn't spend
Yeah.
COVID just playing video games like I thought I was going to. I made it a book, you know. But also like I probably like neglected parts of my personal life because I was busy working on that book. I remember distinctly being at my brother's
Exactly that.
kitchen table publishing a 5e like Indiana Jones style adventure over Christmas break. I probably spent 15 hours of this vacation sitting at the table while my family was hanging out. Like
Ignoring the family, yeah.
I regret that.
Exactly
like
that.
I'm very proud of that adventure. I like it is at the time it was the best work I'd ever done. But looking back, like, you know, there is a balance there, and you really I think it is important to maybe like take a step back sometimes. I'm really talking to myself now. Like
No, it's great because I there's probably wonderful weirdos out there that's connecting to this too, and I went through the same thing. Like 2020, pandemic hits.
yeah.
I wrote 5 games in 2020.
Yeah.
And I
yeah.
basically ignored my wife and kid basically, I think, for a year. You know,
Yeah.
we were all inside at home. And of course, I made them, you know, food. I took care of, you know, the house. I helped. But I mean, all my thoughts were in making this stuff. And
Yeah, all the time,
2021 came and everything changed. We had a crisis in everything here and everything changed. And now I don't spend as much time working on my stuff, but I feel way more connected. I'm happier, and you know, I still do my stuff. Like as you, I try to work every day, but my work really changes every day. Like today, my work might be reading a book I'm gonna write for, and I spend the work reading this book. Like,
Sure.
not the day, but spend the few. As you said, like with a kid, now my hours to work on like half hour here, half hour there,
Well,
half hour.
and we both have
Yeah.
other jobs. Like I'm right now,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
all Limithron all day, but like I have a tour coming up later this year, and I'm going to be
Oh, yeah.
every day. I'm going to be in a new country for a month, and like
That's
I can
awesome.
tell you
Yeah.
right now, that's going to be incredible. But I'm going to have to constantly struggle with like, okay, today was a travel day and a day off. Do I go
Oh, yeah.
explore Berlin or do I work on the Dark Caribbean? And if I make
Did you
the
work
Dark Caribbean
while
trace,
Gary Con and Game on
no,
Expo?
I did not
manage-
work.
Oh, yeah.
No. But I feel like that's different because I'm there for Limithron. I'm there to experience gaming
kind of
and
work.
networking.
Yeah, too.
It is
Yeah.
work. But when I'm going to be on tour, it will be work. I will be paid for my time. But all that downtime, I will constantly struggle with, am I spending this on me and gaining new experiences
Yeah.
or having days
Yeah.
off with my crew? Or am I staying in the hotel and not going to new places so that this thing in the future can be brighter for me than it would be or happen sooner than it would be? You know, that it's a constant struggle I will have to make. And I'm lucky that I only have to make that for a month or two out of the year. Like people like yourself, like you have to make that decision daily if you're going to, you know, a more traditional job,
Yeah.
not normal, because what is normal, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Well, this great talk. I mean, thank you
Yeah.
for sharing all of this. And,
Man, we
now-
got deep. I was not expecting like
Yeah.
psychedelic and religious questions. Hopefully, I haven't alienated anybody. Hopefully, any of my relatives that are offended by those beliefs can just keep those offenses internal because I don't need to hear about them. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I like to talk about this here because I think it's something that is changing. Because to be honest, at least here in Brazil, we are a drug-centered society. Everybody drinks coffee every day. Coffee is a psychedelic. People
Yeah.
don't want to admit that, but coffee is a psychedelic. People drink 50 cups of coffee and say, "Oh,
so
I
much
drink
coffee,
that much." That's too much, man. And,
I was,
you know,
have you read
we
that
take
book?
pills for anything. We have a headache. We take pills. We
yeah.
take pills. We are a drug-based society,
Well, and
there is
alcohol too. Yeah, it's pervasive. Yeah,
and kills everybody. And there's this natural stuff like, you know, weeds and mushrooms that help so many people do so many problems. And this is like, oh no, this is evil. Really?
Have you read that book? I think it's called Botany of Desire by Michael Pollan.
No.
I think
Botany
this-
of Desire.
Yeah, this is all about how like botany and plants have been evolved over history, and the plants themselves have evolved to
Wow.
to our needs, but we have evolved because of the plants, you know. Well, I heard this guy on NPR, and he was talking about, I think he has another book or something, but he didn't drink coffee for like a year, and then drank coffee again, and explained his experience of what that was like, and like basically the importance that coffee has had in society. That basically the Industrial Revolution is in large part due to coffee. Because it rewires our brains. And after listening to this guy talk about coffee, I was like, I am literally never going to not drink coffee. I'm never going to be one of those guys because of all of the effects. I mean, of course, some people can, of course, not drink coffee, but it was just an interesting thing. Check him out.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll check that out for sure. Thank you. And what I'm saying, like, I have some more questions that are more silly. They seem silly now compared to all this deep stuff we talked about. I mean,
we can go for it. I mean, if you want to go for it, let's do it.
Oh yeah, of course. We can also get out some interesting stuff. So, have you ever had any supernatural experiences, or do you believe in anything supernatural, like ghosts, aliens, cryptids, or anything like this?
I have never had any supernatural experiences, despite wearing an alien hat and love science fiction. I believe extraterrestrial life exists. It's not even a percentage. I'm so certain it's like a binary yes. But whether we will ever experience that in our lifetimes or whether we have, I seriously question. All the Roswell stuff really intrigues me, but I kind of feel like it seems like hopeful thinking, or it's like we are ants on the next to the supernatural highway of extraterrestrial life, and they just don't care about us yet. Ghosts. Never had anything close to a supernatural ghost experience. My logical brain finds ghosts and spirits and the undead as an actual thing very, very unlikely. I could totally be wrong. I just, in my own, scientific, driven logical brain, have seen no evidence of those existing, especially things like religion. I have seen nothing where I'm like, yes, this thing means that religion is real, but I could be wrong. I'm willing to admit that I very likely am wrong. Yeah,
that's the agnosticism you mentioned about. I'm kind of like that. I don't believe in God. I don't believe in ghosts. I am an atheist, but I mean, yeah, if something's proven, if I see something, of course I can change my mind, right?
I like to say that I think that I am smart enough to know that I don't know everything, I like to think that I'm wise enough. Yeah. I'm wise enough to know that I am not that smart, I guess. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think there's a lot of people who just assume things, and I'm not willing to,
Yeah. Since you're a pirate guy in like islands, there is this saying that like the bigger the island of knowledge, the wider the shores of the unknown,
Yeah, I like that. That's cool, yeah. Definitely can identify with that. The older I get, the more I'm just like, man, there's so much I just don't know yet.
Yeah. And now, if you could live in any fantasy setting, any fictional world or universe, what would you choose to live, and who would you be in that universe?
Interesting. I asked this question on a shorter form of this question on my podcast a lot, but I never actually have answered it. If you don't mind.
What's the short question? Maybe I learned something.
If you could live in no, I like your question. I use it as part of a like lightning round, that doesn't matter. Okay, so I have a couple answers. One would be, if I'm picking a character to be, like both Yoda and Gandalf are like, they are my like biggest, I don't want to say role models, but they are like the pillars of, they're a big part of my personality and what I am like, who I strive to be like, who I look up to. Like both of those characters, they're so wise, but they're also powerful, but they're restrained in their power, and they're able to guide the people around them. But
they both have a sense of humor too. Like Gandalf,
they both, yes, absolutely,
Yoda,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I feel that very strongly. You cannot, if anybody here has played or watched a game of Pirate Borg with me, no matter what we try, it always ends in laughing, even if it's dark horror. So those two, like I have dreamed for years of playing some kind of video game where I'm just on Dagobah for months training. I'm Luke training with Yoda. My lighting design company is called The Light Side. The podcast is called The Light Side. Like, that's just a big part of my identity. And then Gandalf, the same side, specifically Gandalf the Gray. I think the white is a little too like, I'm too bothered with the world and I kind of know too much to be fun anymore. But Gray, he's smoking pipe weed. He obviously loves the Shire. He's not a hobbit. He doesn't live in the Shire, but man, he wants to go there. That really is me, part of my identity. Now, I don't know that I would give the Shire as my answer to what fantasy setting I'd want to live in. Oh man, there's so many good answers. I feel like the Humblewood, kind of Redwall, what's the other one? Root RPG setting could be really cool, where you're like, maybe I'm Gandalf the wizard or the wizard mouse, the coziness of like the sun-streaked forest, and the threat is the cat,
wizard raccoon.
Yes, wizard raccoon. Yeah, I really identify with that. And then I think people often call me a pirate for obvious reasons, and I don't think that's accurate. I think that really I am the Gandalf Yoda character that lived so long. They lived through their early age into the age of sail. And now they've made their way, maybe not the dark Caribbean. Like, why would I want to live in the dark Caribbean? But some version of the Caribbean where it's an archipelago of islands and all you have to do is sail around looking for quest and rum and pipeweed. And, I guess that's my long answer to your question.
That's awesome. And the other question is, if you could take anything from this fictional worlds, this fictional universe, and bring it to our own reality and make it real here, what would you bring and why? And that can be, an object, a character, an entity, a faction.
No, I've got an answer, I think.
Okay.
I really wish that we could bring the wisdom and love of art that Tolkien's elves have into our society. And we see this a little bit. Sometimes you'll be in some cities where the government buildings or just the architecture in general, you'll be like, wow, who was in charge to get them to spend money on this in a good way? But I think if you look at like Lorien and Rivendell, like there is an understanding in those races of what is important in life that I think is severely lacking in human culture. Like, we're so profit driven and we're so like accomplishment goal driven. There's like this,
we forgot the process, the journey, as you said.
Yes. And there's like almost like this disdain for the mentally ill and homeless. Like in America, like healthcare being something that is profitized, like not even in politics. Like, I just feel like there's a version of Earth, if you're in the, Rick and Morty, like portal gun thing, where like we show up to the one where like the elves were there early on and we're like, humans, here, you dumb little furry creatures, like do it this way, where people are like, instead of like, oh man, this guy, like, this homeless guy, like peed on my lawn. It's like, instead that there's like this care for those people and for like the buildings that we spend our time in, that like make them seem like they're more not a part of nature. Like, they need to be extensions of ourselves, but something that is grand and worth being. Like, when you're in a space that's amazing, you feel better about everything. Like, I don't know why there's not more of that. If I were in charge of society, there'd be a lot more of that wondrous design in our everyday lives.
That's great. Yeah.
Like, CVS would be this amazing place to go. People would be like, hang out at CVS because we go there daily,
Yeah. Places should be more place for you to live and to stay than just a place to run by, spend money, and get the fuck off, right?
Yeah.
Be more livable spaces. That's what's it's missing, I think.
Yeah. Like,
where we can exist for free. Like, it feels like this. Like, you go out, it costs you that much to just exists
or even
here.
like government buildings, like the DMV, the driver, motor vehicle registration, or a hospital. Like a hospital is a place of healing. Like imagine you're playing an RPG.
A box.
Yeah, you're playing an RPG and your players need to go to a house of healing. What does that look like to you? It's an amazing place with flowing curtains and sunlight streaking in, and like some people are healing their emotions and some people are healing the arm they're missing. And like you go to the hospital and it's like a sad place where people who are dying go. Or people with illnesses, like there's no joy in those, and I feel like a house of healing should have joy. The elves would teach us that.
Hope, in a way.
Yeah.
And if you could choose any superpower, Luke, any superpower you could have, what superpower would you choose, and what would be the first thing you would do with that?
Okay, well, I thought about this one a lot because this one's hard because I'm assuming the question is, what superpower would you actually have? Like, if I could actually have one right now, which one would it be?
Yeah.
And that gets really complicated because if I can fly, or I can move things with my mind, or, make my bank account get really big, these all have repercussions in society that I will have to answer to. And I don't like that. So the thing that I've always wished for, especially with my job traveling, is to be able to teleport. I feel like if I could teleport, then I could probably keep it secret for a little bit. And when they finally found out and had to study me, they would study me for a while and I'd probably become pretty famous, but then I could just go back to teleporting and I could be like, now I'm at home. Now I'm at work. Now I'm at Disney World. Now I'm in the Shire. Now I'm on top of a mountain, now I'm at the bottom of this coral reef, but I didn't have to do any of the work to get there. Like I love traveling, and I would love to remove the amount of time it takes to get to the places I like to travel to. Yeah, that's my answer.
Yeah, and that's a very, very popular superpower too. Yeah, teleport.
Yeah.
Where would be the first place you would visit?
The top of my head is the Shire.
In New Zealand.
In New Zealand, I've been there. I went there on my honeymoon. I brought my Gandalf costume.
Really?
And I got. They aren't allowed to wear costumes, so it's like it's not owned by the studio. It's like privately owned, so they're in a licensing deal, but the staff can't wear costumes. So I wore a Gandalf costume, and I don't know if you know where New Zealand is, but it's like next to Australia-ish, not really, but like that's the closest continent. But it's also pretty close to Asia, and I'll tell you, I have never felt more famous in my entire life than wearing a Gandalf costume at the Shire movie set, because I got swarmed by tourists, especially the tourists from Asia. I got literally my tour guide had to be like, Gandalf, the bus is leaving, because I was stopping and taking pictures with all these tourists. And I don't know if the cultural background had any, like maybe I look more like real Gandalf if you're not a white guy, which maybe helped, because I don't know. It was just very it was a very fun memory, but I think that place is so magical. That's probably the first place I would pick, just to be like, does this work? Psh, oh, it works. Sweet. And then I would come back home and get back to work.
That's great. The scene must be really good to see. Did your wife take any pictures of you in the Gandalf?
Oh, yeah. We got pictures, my man. We got a picture in front of me and her in front of Bilbo's Hobbit hole. We got a bunch of pictures. Yeah. There.
Did she got any pictures you getting swarmed by tourists?
No. She is very. If I'm chaotic good, my wife is a 100% lawful good, and she stayed with the group, and I was like loving it. I was like hamming it up. So she did not. This is not the kind of thing she would have stopped to take a picture of. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
And look, our final question here is. Do you remember the last time you felt just really happy and just grateful for being here and being alive? And if you do, can you share when was it and what were you doing?
Oh man, I feel like I have touches of that pretty regularly now. I think I'm old enough to have tamed my younger emotions, and I have a lot of things going well enough for me to be. If I'm not thankful, I'm doing something wrong. But I think at GaryCon, I think there were multiple moments at GaryCon, that was last week for those who are listening, where where I just was like, man, like this is really cool. Like this is really cool to be hanging out with the people that I'm hanging out with, talking about the things that we're talking about. That convention, it's not a convention, it's more of a hotel convention center, is really cozy. And like I said with my elves answer, like warm, comfortable, not warm, like warm and vibe, comfortable spaces, I find very inspiring. And to be able to spend a week in a comfortable environment with people who I A, look up to, and B, in some cases, I don't want to say look up to me, but we had a handful of, we call them harbor masters. They're part of our harbor master program that run games for Pirate Borg.
Yeah. We drank rum with them. Yeah.
Yes, there were like 4 or 5 of them who had printed a flag, our handmade a Pirate Borg flag, and they were running games, and we had like nothing to do with it. Usually at conventions we like set all those things up. That's actually the moment I was thinking of when you and I were sitting with them having drinks, and Dave was there. I really like, I'm sorry, I don't know Dave's last name, but there's just some really charismatic people in our industry, but specifically in the Pirate Borg community, where I feel I don't know if I've lucked out or if we've curated those kinds of people, but I feel very, very fortunate to get to spend my time with those kinds of people. Like, I don't know what it is about pirate RPGs, but the people that it seems to be attracting seem to be very community yes, like crew
and you're
seems
the
to be a thing. Yeah, somehow. Like I said, maybe I'm the wizard in the bottom of the ship, but I'll be the captain.
You're wizard captain. You're wizard captain.
Yeah. I like to think that I'm like the weird captain who does
Gandalf the gray beard.
Yes, but I'm not calling out the orders because I'm too busy like writing a spell, you know. So that's
Yeah. Look, when we were on Game on Expo, we had a bunch of panels, and you have the recordings of this. Do you have any plans on releasing these recordings on your podcast?
Well, we actually, I told my brother about it. Like I said, he's my quartermaster, and he kind of is my wrangler, if you will. And I think we actually discussed yesterday or the day before, I'm going to give him the recordings, and he's going to give them a listen to. I'm not sure about audio quality and whatnot, and they're all, it's 4 hours. But I think the plan is to have him give them a listen, and then if he thinks it's worth editing, then we'll send it over to Matt, our editor, and have him maybe compile it down into an episode or two. Because I think there's some really good stuff in there.
There's some good stuff there.
Yeah. What can we?
We're not that bad.
No, we had some good answers. There's a lot to cut out because of the way panels work. What were the 4 panels though? There was a world building panel.
We talked about world building. We talked about why we are using other systems out of D&D.
The name of that panel was it was D&D Can't Tell My Story, which is maybe not the name I would have picked for the panel, because I think D&D can tell some Dark Caribbean stories, but I still like some of the topics we talked about. And there was one of making it in their hobby, so we talked about how we do our work, how we did it, and how we continue to do and explore, and how making a living as a geek. And
the third was just talking about games we like that aren't D&D. Like it was about play more RPGs. Like we're talking
play
about
play more RPGs.
How the different things RPGs can do, and the moment when I I discussed with Joe about D&D. We fought on record. And we talked about using rules as toys. And
like that whole section, while it was enjoyable for me to listen to you and John Wick argue about whether the first edition of D&D is actually a role-playing game, I'm not sure it will translate to an audio podcast. So that's what we'll have them take a listen to it, and then I'll send it all over to you.
Yeah. Well, look, it was really amazing to have you here. It was amazing to hang out with you on Game on Expo and GaryCon. I'm so happy we had this talk, and we reflect on so many things. I think there is a lot for wonderful weirdos to take from this episode. But do you have any last messages from the wonderful weirdos that are still listening to us?
Oh, I want to just say, Diogo, that it's been really nice getting to know you. I've told this story during the panels, but like, I didn't really know who Diogo was by his face. And he was at my birthday party at Gen Con last year. And I kind of like, I don't want to say that I ignored you, but I did not give you the proper greeting I would have now. And your work has really inspired me, especially Halls of the Blood King. So my listeners, remember, you never know who you're talking to. They might be a future close friend of yours. So yeah, thank you for having me on, and I can't wait to see you the next time you come to the States, or I come to Brazil.
Yeah, of course, and thank you for having me at your birthday party. Sorry if I was like how do you say, like I'm uninvited guest there?
No, not at all. You were more than welcome. You were more than welcome. Yes, and yeah.
I mean, we got to know each other now, and that's great, and I'm very grateful for it. And yeah, can you take us out saying the catchphrase of the show, Luke? Keep it weird, everybody.
Matey, keep it weird, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Weird Games and Weirder People. If you'd like to keep up with the show, please subscribe to be notified when we release new episodes. If you'd like to support us, please leave a review or head on to code-fi.com/WGNWP. See you next time, and remember, weird is the new wonderful.